The frigid air conditioning of the towering Sterling financial headquarters did little to cool the rage simmering in Derek Sloan's chest. The air, crisp and tasting faintly of expensive marble polish and new leather, seemed to emphasize the stark difference between him and the man slumped behind the vast security desk. Derek, 32 years old, and already boasting the corner office view usually reserved for those with 3 decades of corporate blood on their hands, wore a custom-tailored Italian suit the color of midnight, his movements sharp and precise. His gold Patek Philippe watch caught the glare of the recessed ceiling lights as he jabbed a furious finger at the elderly security guard. "Look at yourself, Arthur," Derek hissed, his voice pitched just low enough that the passing analysts wouldn't hear the specifics, but high enough to carry the unmistakable weight of pure corporate condemnation. "Look at the optics. This is Sterling Financial. This is the global gateway to capital investment. And you look like you were just fished out of a dumpster behind a regional bus depot." Arthur Vance, or the man currently playing the role of Arthur Vance, shifted slightly in the ergonomic, albeit squeaky, chair. His uniform blazer was clean, technically, but the cheap, institutional polyester was visibly threadbare at the elbows, and it hung on his frame in a way that spoke of exhaustion rather than authority. He smelled faintly of the stale coffee brewed in the basement and the simple sweat of a man who worked long, uncelebrated hours. Arthur pulled the thin, steel-rimmed reading glasses down his nose and looked up at the impeccably groomed manager of operations. His face, augmented by theatrical makeup designed to accentuate every line and furrow, held a look of genuine confusion and vulnerability. "Mr. Sloan, I don't understand. Is there a security breach? I ran the logs. The breach is you, Arthur. You are the breach." Derek slammed a flat hand onto the highly polished mahogany of the reception desk. The sharp crack echoed in the cavernous lobby. "You are 72 years old, Arthur. Maybe 75. We hired you on a compassion clause 2 months ago, a mistake I opposed then and regret bitterly now. And you have done nothing but drag down the aesthetic of a multi-billion-dollar institution." Arthur swallowed, his throat dry. This was the specific trigger he had planted, the physical evidence of his age. He had purposely exaggerated his stoop, deliberately chosen the cheapest, most non-slip shoes he could find, which made his walk a shuffling waddle, and ensured his movements were conspicuously slow. He was testing the manager's tolerance for inefficiency, the ultimate sin in this sterile corporate cathedral. "I monitor the cameras constantly, sir. I signed in 3 deliveries this morning. I haven't missed a scan," Arthur pleaded, forcing his voice to tremble slightly, the sound of a man terrified of losing his last chance at an income. "My performance metrics are on par with Johnson on the 3rd shift." Derek scoffed, adjusting the silk knot of his tie with surgical precision. "Metrics? I don't give a damn about your metrics. This isn't about numbers, Arthur. This is about image. When a potential client, a serious whale dropping $500 million into our fund, walks into this lobby, their first sight is not the marble facade, it's the security station. And what do they see?" He leaned closer, his breath smelling of expensive mints and pure contempt. "They see a relic, a liability. They see a man who looks one aggressive cough away from a stroke. They see failure. They see a company that relies on charity cases instead of efficiency." The humiliation was crushing, and Arthur let it wash over him, internalizing the bile. He remembered the feeling of wearing the tailored $15,000 suits that Derek probably dreamed of, but right now, the cheap polyester felt like a sackcloth of shame. "I just took my blood pressure, Mr. Sloan. It's fine. I feel well," Arthur insisted weakly. "I need this job, sir. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and my rent is due next week. I just need to get through the end of the month." This was the next layer of the test, appealing to basic human empathy. Derek laughed, a cold, empty sound that scraped against the granite walls. Paycheck to paycheck? That's your problem, Arthur, and frankly, it's not Sterling Financial's problem. We pay minimum wage, which is more than enough for a retired man who should be knitting scarves in Florida. If you can't manage your finances, that's a failure of personal character, not a failure of our recruitment process. He pulled a crisp white envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket, the stark white, a painful contrast to the faded blue of Arthur's uniform. This is your pink slip, effective immediately. Arthur's hand trembled as he reached out, clutching the edge of the desk. Immediately? Mr. Sloan, you have to give me 2 weeks' notice. It's company policy, Section 8.2 of the Employee Handbook. Derek sighed, rolling his eyes dramatically for the benefit of 2 young women in crisp beige blazers who stopped momentarily near the elevators. They averted their gaze instantly, recognizing the dangerous power dynamic unfolding. I'm invoking Clause 14C, inability to maintain the high standards of corporate aesthetic and professional presentation. It's the looks too old and sad clause, Arthur. Read it when you get home. It allows for immediate termination with cause, bypassing the severance and 2-week notice requirements. Consider this cause. Arthur, maintaining the posture of a man genuinely defeated, slumped further. This was exactly what he needed to see. Not just a man who fired people, but a man who used loopholes and corporate language to strip them of basic rights, the severance, the dignity. But I need the severance, Mr. Sloan, Arthur whispered, the real desperation of millions of working poor echoing in the single sentence. I can't cover my bills without it. Please, I promise I will stand straighter. I'll dye my hair. I'll wear a girdle, whatever it takes. Just give me the severance. I am not running a charity, Arthur, Derek said, his voice hardening, his patience dissolving completely. He leaned down until his expensively scented hair nearly brushed Arthur's rough graying temple. I'm running a top-tier financial firm, and you are cheapening the brand. Get your things now. You have 10 minutes to clear out your cubby, or I will have facilities do it and mail your few sad possessions to whatever hovel you call home. He grabbed the laminated Sterling Financial ID badge from the desk and with a vicious snap, ripped it in half. You are off the clock, and you are off the premises. The manager straightened up, smoothing the front of his jacket. The look he cast upon Arthur was not one of anger anymore, but of utter cold dismissal, the way one looks at a smear of dirt on a pristine window. Security is about protection, Arthur, and today I am protecting Sterling Financial from you. Act 2, the manager's backstory, the rot. Derek Sloan had not been born cruel, he had meticulously cultivated it. Cruelty, he realized early in his career climb, from analyst intern to regional manager in a shocking 7 years, was simply efficiency applied ruthlessly. Empathy was wasted energy. Sympathy was a cost center. Derek grew up with a silver spoon that occasionally needed polishing, not scraping to find food. His father, a mid-level partner at a prestigious Manhattan law firm, drilled one concept into his head. Power is not inherited. It is extracted. In his early 20s, while still climbing the greasy corporate pole, Derek had watched a competitor, a kind, slightly slower woman named Eleanor, get laid off just 3 days before her maternity leave started. The reason given was redundancy. The real reason was that she was too soft and her productivity had dipped slightly while dealing with severe morning sickness. Derek had been appalled then, but he had watched how easily the management filled her spot with a faster, cheaper hire, and the department budget benefited. The moral calculus had changed forever. Now, at 32, Derek's office was not just a space, it was a shrine to his ambition. The lighting was always kept slightly too bright, the white carpet was immaculate, and the view a panoramic vista of Lower Manhattan, served as a constant reminder of the prize. He had worked 80-hour weeks, destroyed 3 professional relationships, and convinced himself he didn't need friends because true success was solitary. He ruled his department, operations and building management, with an iron fist masked by a Teflon smile. He tracked bathroom breaks, micromanaged the temperature settings, and had once terminated a janitor for accidentally leaving a fingerprint on the CEO's private elevator mirror. The constant tension, however, had to go somewhere. The stress of maintaining perfection, of constantly proving to the older partners that his youth was an asset, not a temporary gimmick, chewed at him constantly. His wife, Chelsea, had tried to talk to him about it last night, a messy, emotional conversation that ended with him slamming the bedroom door and sleeping on the Italian leather sofa in his study. "You are turning into the cliché, Derek," Chelsea had whispered, tears staining her expensive silk pillowcase. "You are just a bully with a 6-figure salary. You hate everyone who reminds you of what you might become if you fail." Derek had dismissed it instantly. Failure is not an option. He saw Arthur Vance, the geriatric security guard, not as a human being needing a job, but as a prophecy. A warning sign that if Derek ever slowed down, if he ever showed weakness, he would end up just like him. Old, disposable, and smelling faintly of desperation and stale coffee. His latest ambition was to prove to the board that the security budget was bloated. Replacing 2 elderly, higher-paid guards with 4 younger guards, paid barely above minimum wage, would save the company $80,000 annually. Firing Arthur Vance, especially under a breach of image technicality, was step 1 in demonstrating his fiscal value. As Derek walked back toward his private elevator, the encounter with Arthur already fading into the background static of his busy day, he felt a smug rush of satisfaction. He had handled the problem quickly, cleanly, and without sentiment. That was leadership. He ignored the small knot in his gut, the dull ache that was increasingly becoming his constant companion. The awareness that he was utterly, miserably lonely, surrounded only by subordinates who feared him and a wife who was starting to despise him. He just needed to focus on the numbers never judged. Beta 3, the escalation, the test of character. Arthur Vance, still sitting at the desk, watched the manager stride past the elevator bank, his steps booming with self-importance. Arthur knew the script by heart. Derek had played his part perfectly. The over-leveraged middle manager desperate to impress the invisible board. Arthur had one final test prepared, one that would distinguish Derek from merely demanding manager to a genuinely malicious one. It involved the most basic of human needs. He slowly gathered the contents of his tiny locker beneath the desk, a worn copy of a paperback detective novel, a nearly empty tube of cheap antacid tablets, and a chipped thermos. He deliberately left the thermos on the desk, right next to the shattered fragments of his ID badge. As he stood up, he paused, clutching his side dramatically. He had to make this look physically agonizing. He shuffled over to the glass wall that separated the security station from the general employee lounge, a lavish space where filtered water flowed from chrome dispensers and high-end espresso machines whirred softly. He spotted Derek still waiting for his private elevator, talking animatedly into a Bluetooth headset, likely bragging about the cost savings he'd just achieved. Arthur knocked lightly on the thick glass partition, then slowly opened the thin, soundproof door. "Mr. Sloan," he called out, his voice hoarse and shaky. Derek pulled the headset away from his ear, annoyance instantly flooding his features. He spun around, his posture tightening like a spring. "I told you to vacate the premises, Arthur. You are trespassing now. I already shredded your badge." "I know, sir, I am leaving. I need one thing," Arthur said, pointing a trembling finger toward the gleaming water dispenser 20 feet away. "I took my medication about an hour ago, the one for my arthritis. I haven't had any water since, and I'm feeling faint. May I please just get one small cup of water before I go? I will be out the door in 30 seconds. It was a small, reasonable request, a simple test of compassion. Arthur was intentionally playing up the physical distress, simulating the side effects of certain heart medications that required constant hydration. Derek looked at the water dispenser, then at Arthur's face, pale beneath the theatrical application of sweat and powder. He saw the antacid tube resting beside the old man's novel. He knew Arthur wasn't faking the need for water entirely. The heating in the uniform was deliberately set high by the undercover surveillance team. But Derek didn't see a thirsty man. He saw a nuisance, a delay, a final pathetic attempt to leverage pity for a few extra moments in the building. "No," Derek stated flatly. Arthur froze. "Sir, it's just water from the public dispenser. It's not proprietary information." "It's about access, Arthur. You are no longer an employee. You are a civilian with no security clearance," Derek lectured, raising his voice slightly to draw the attention of a nearby junior analyst. "Access to this employee lounge is a benefit of employment. You are no longer privy to those benefits, including the filtered water, the high-speed Wi-Fi, or the complimentary snacks." He gestured dismissively toward the polished glass doors of the lobby. "There are 3 delis within 2 blocks of this building. There's a drinking fountain in the subway station. You are dismissed. Find water elsewhere." Arthur forced the humiliation deeper, allowing his shoulders to sag completely. He let the vulnerability flood his voice. "Mr. Sloan, please. I'm feeling genuinely dizzy. If I pass out here, it will cause a scene and you'll have the paramedics and police here. Just one small cup, I promise." "That sounds like a threat, Arthur," Derek said, his lips curling into a smug, triumphant smile. This was fun now. He was asserting absolute dominion over a man begging for the most basic necessity. "You are threatening to disrupt my lobby with a medical emergency just because you won't leave quietly?" He took a step toward Arthur, closing the gap. "If you fall, Arthur, you fall on the sidewalk. You are not my responsibility anymore. Get out now, or I will call city security and have them physically remove you for loitering." Arthur stared into the manager's cold, dead eyes. The test was over. Derek Sloan was not just ambitious. He was fundamentally devoid of moral character. He saw water as a corporate benefit, not a human right. Arthur simply nodded, the pretense of arguing dissolving into quiet, exhausted defeat. "Yes, sir. Right away. I apologize for the inconvenience." He turned and began the slow, painful shuffle toward the massive, revolving glass doors. The exit that symbolized not just the end of a job, but the final expulsion from a high-stakes, exclusive world. He left the chipped thermos behind, a marker left purposefully on the desk, waiting. Derek watched him go, a sense of cold satisfaction settling over him. Problem solved. He finally stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the 45th floor, ready to report his successful cost-saving measure to the executives, confident he had just secured his next promotion. He never noticed the silent, tiny camera lens concealed in the metal buckle of Arthur Vance's discarded uniform belt, streaming every word of the encounter directly to a heavily encrypted server across town. He had no idea that the inconvenience he had just dismissed was the very man who owned 51% of Sterling Financial. And Arthur Vance, disguised as an elderly, pathetic security guard, was just getting started. The polished steel doors of the elevator slid shut, sealing Derek Sloan away from the unwashed masses and the lingering scent of stale sweat that Arthur Vance had carried. 45 floors of silence, insulation, and rising power. Derek adjusted the knot of his custom-made Hermes tie, the silk cool against his throat. He smoothed the lapels of his charcoal Brioni suit, a garment that cost more than Arthur's annual salary. He watched his own flawless reflection in the smoked glass panel. 32 years old, impossibly well-preserved, sharp and lean. He had the kind of aggressive, sculpted features that suggested ambition was an inherited trait, not a learned one. He carried the confidence of a man who had never once worried about an overdue bill or the cost of a doctor's visit. He was Sterling Financial's golden boy, the youngest senior vice president of strategic operations in the firm's 90-year history. He enjoyed the quiet ascent. The ground floor was messy, a petri dish of minimum wage anxiety and chaotic comings and goings. The lobby was a necessary evil, the gateway to the real power, but it had to be managed, policed, and above all, kept aesthetically pleasing. That old man, Arthur, with his chipped thermos and his limp, was an affront to the Sterling image, a smudge on the polished brass of the corporate ethos. Derek smirked, remembering the look of desperation in Arthur's eyes. Water, the audacity. He didn't hate the poor. He merely found them inefficient and tiresome. They were the background noise, the operational overhead, the fat that needed trimming from the quarterly budget, and Derek Sloan was an expert butcher. His contempt was not recent. It was baked into his DNA, polished by private education and reinforced by a rapid, unearned ascent up the corporate ladder. Derek hadn't been born wealthy. He was moneyed. His father, a middling partner at a large Chicago law firm, had instilled in him the core belief that labor was a commodity, and those who provided low-value labor were inherently less deserving. He remembered a conversation from his undergraduate days at Wharton. He had been arguing with a classmate about income inequality. "They just need to work harder, Derek," the classmate had said, mirroring the family mantra. Derek had disagreed vehemently. "No, Michael, they need to work smarter." And frankly, most of them just lack the necessary grit and dedication. They settle for the minimum. They clock out at 5 on the dot. They take their sick days. They demand benefits. They are drag on the engine of prosperity. The system rewards ambition, not attendance. He had applied that philosophy religiously in his professional life. 2 years ago, he had secured his first major promotion by managing the restructuring of the compliance department. The team leader, a woman named Monica Davies, was a meticulous, loyal employee who had worked at Sterling for 17 years. She was also 4 months pregnant and desperately needed the company's long-term health insurance. Derek had found a loophole. Monica had taken 3 unscheduled days off in 1 month to care for her ailing elderly father. Derek didn't care about the medical emergency. He cared about the missed deadlines. He called her into his office, a sleek glass cube where the air conditioning was always set too high. "Monica, I understand your situation is difficult," Derek had said, leaning back in his ergonomic leather chair, displaying all the compassion of a tax auditor. "But this company runs on efficiency and dedication. Sterling Financial is a machine, and if one gear slips, the entire mechanism fails." Monica, clutching a sheaf of doctor's notes, had pleaded, "Derek, please. I've done 15 years of perfect work. I'll make up the time. I just need this job for the baby's coverage. I need the maternity leave." "Maternity leave is a privilege earned through consistent, high-level performance," Derek corrected, his voice flat. "Your performance is currently erratic, and frankly, the optics are terrible." He'd slid the pink slip across the polished mahogany. The reason stated, failure to meet core performance metrics and inconsistent attendance. Monica hadn't just lost her job, she'd lost her future. The lawsuit that followed was quickly settled, muffled by Sterling's powerful legal team. Derek, having successfully streamlined the department and taken credit for Monica's half-finished project, received a 5-figure bonus and a new title. That was the only dedication Derek understood. Dedication to the bottom line, dedication to the climb. Human cost was just line item adjustment. The elevator doors chimed, opening onto the 45th floor. This floor was different. The carpets were thicker, silencing footsteps. The lighting was recessed, casting everything in a soft, ethereal glow. Here, in the sanctum of executive power, the air itself smelled expensive. Ozone and faint citrus from the daily delivery of fresh flowers. He walked past the administrative assistant's desk. Brenda, a quiet, hyper-efficient woman in her late 50s, didn't even look up from her screen, though her fingers trembled slightly on the keyboard. Everyone on this floor knew Derek Sloan was both terrifying and powerful. He didn't fire people. He vaporized them. He entered the conference room reserved for his presentation. It was cavernous, centered around a 20-foot-long table of single-slab Brazilian granite. The view was breathtaking. The entire cityscape stretched out below him like a child's discarded toys. He stood for a moment, absorbing the altitude, the sheer scale of his domain. He felt 10 feet tall. He pulled out his laptop and connected it to the massive wall monitor. The presentation title flashed onto the screen: Project Clean Slate, Maximizing Real Estate Value Through Personnel Optimization. Arthur Vance, the old security guard, was Exhibit A. Derek opened his notes. The core thesis of his presentation, which he would deliver to 3 members of the board and the COO in 30 minutes, centered on outsourcing all non-core services. Sterling Financial paid too much for loyalty, history, and human oversight. Security guards are inefficient. They sleep, they get sick, they require benefits. Better to replace them with advanced AI-driven surveillance systems and external short-term contract patrol. Janitorial services are messy. Better to bring in a national contractor who can do the work overnight, guaranteeing a clean lobby for 25% less. He saw Arthur's face again. The gauntness, the tremor, the desperate plea for a simple cup of water. It reinforced Derek's conviction. People like Arthur were liabilities. They were weak. They carried their baggage into his pristine corporate environment. He pulled up the slide detailing the current security contract. Arthur's photo, a blurry, decades-old ID picture, was next to the salary column. $34,000 annually. Too high. Derek hit a key, and the next slide appeared. It displayed a sleek, futuristic mock-up of the lobby, completely devoid of human presence, save for the suited executives. In this simulation, the security post was a chrome kiosk, dispensing visitor badges autonomously. He looked at the projected numbers. The savings from switching to an automated, outsourced security system would be immense. He would save sterling $1.2 million in the first year alone. This was his ticket to executive vice president. This was his reward for seeing people as mere data points. A soft knock came at the conference room door. Brenda, visibly nervous, peered in. "Mr. Sloan, I apologize for interrupting. There's a call on line 1. It's highly encrypted. The caller ID just says, 'The Exchange.'" Derek frowned. Calls routed through the exchange were reserved for the highest level of proprietary communication, M&A deals, crisis negotiations, the kind of things that moved markets. Why would he be receiving one? "Put it through to the room," he commanded, gesturing toward the conference phone on the granite table. He picked up the receiver, his professional mask firmly in place. "Derek Sloan, Senior Vice President of Strategic Operations. How may I assist you?" The line was silent for a moment, heavy with static. Then a voice cut through the background noise. It was clipped, clear, and carried the unmistakable weight of command. "Mr. Sloan, I've just received your internal report detailing the immediate termination of the contract security guard, Arthur Vance. Derek bristled slightly. How had the report circulated so fast? It had only been 10 minutes since he'd sent the memo. Yes, that's correct, Derek confirmed, regaining his polished composure. It was an operational decision, justified by the violation of several corporate policy provisions regarding employee appearance and loitering. I initiated the termination process myself just moments ago. There was a low, chilling chuckle on the other end of the line. It wasn't amusement. It sounded like dry ice scraping against concrete. Violation of policy, the voice echoed. Specifically, the violation of being too old and needing a small drink of water after having worked a triple shift due to staff shortages you yourself caused. Derek felt a prickle of unease. This was not a standard corporate inquiry. This person knew too many details. Sir, I'm not sure who this is, but the optics of his condition, his poor hygiene, his persistent trembling, his general state of decay are unacceptable for a high-traffic financial institution like Sterling. We are managing our brand image. You managed your brand image by denying a basic human need, Mr. Sloan, the voice corrected sharply. You managed your brand image by treating an asset like trash. You are an exceptionally efficient little robot, aren't you? You see only the data, never the dedication. Derek tightened his grip on the phone. I assure you, I follow the guidelines set by management to the letter. If you have an issue with company policy, perhaps you should take it up with the executive board. Oh, I plan to. The voice paused, and the background static sharpened, sounding like 100 miles of fiber optic cable humming with hidden power. Let me ask you this, Derek. If Sterling Financial's goal is truly to maximize real estate value through personnel optimization, why did you insist on the immediate high-cost settlement of Monica Davies' wrongful termination suit 2 years ago? A settlement that cost the firm triple the severance package she was originally due. Why did you insist on a complete gag order and NDA that cost us another $500,000 in legal fees, all to cover up your policy violations? The air in the cold, opulent room seemed to thin. Derek's meticulously constructed composure began to crack. Only 3 people knew the true cost of the Monica Davies settlement: the General Counsel, the CEO, and one other individual whose identity was almost mythical, a silent majority shareholder who often interfered in high-level HR matters when he felt the ethical core of the company was threatened. Who is this? Derek demanded, his voice dropping from professional arrogance to genuine alarm. That doesn't matter yet, Derek, the voice stated smoothly. What matters is the test you just failed with spectacular cruelty. You see, I instructed Arthur Vance, that decrepit old man you just tossed onto the street, to leave a specific item behind at the security desk when you fired him. Derek's mind raced back to the lobby, the thermos, the chipped, ugly army green thermos sitting innocently next to the marble pillar. What about it? Derek stammered, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead despite the excessive air conditioning. Arthur has worked triple shifts for the last week, deliberately avoiding showers, deliberately wearing his oldest uniform, limping just a little more noticeably than usual. He did all of this because I wanted to see if the new senior vice president in charge of personnel optimization had any concept of loyalty, dedication, or basic human decency. The full implication of the call crashed down on Derek like the view from the 45th floor. Arthur Vance was not just a security guard, he was an operative. That thermos, Derek, contains a highly encrypted satellite phone and a small, state-of-the-art retinal scanner. The owner of Sterling Financial uses that specific device to communicate only during sensitive, undercover operational tests. Derek felt the floor tilt beneath him. The cold reality of the gilded cage he had built around himself began to shatter. You see, Mr. Sloan, you just made the monumental mistake of firing a dedicated employee, an employee who was specifically instructed to test the moral fiber of our executive team, all because you couldn't spare him a cup of tap water. Derek tried to find his voice, to formulate a defense, an excuse rooted in policy or protocol, but the words withered in his mouth. I am the chairman of the board, Mr. Sloan, the voice declared, the tone hardening into absolute, unquestionable authority. And as of this moment, every interaction you have had with Arthur Vance over the last 3 weeks has been recorded, time-stamped, and catalogued. Your Project Clean Slate is about to become your resignation. Derek's elegant, tailored life dissolved into a sickening freefall. He finally understood why the voice on the line sounded so familiar, so devastatingly confident. It was the voice of the only man who could authorize the exchange communication line. You called me, Derek, the voice concluded, cutting off any possibility of argument, because Arthur Vance is the owner of Sterling Financial. The floor, the building, the entire fragile edifice of Derek Sloan's ambition shuddered violently, preparing for the earthquake. The ultimate test of character had been administered, and the final damning verdict was already being prepared. The climax was coming. The receiver felt like a block of ice in Derek Sloan's hand, yet his palm was slick with a sudden clammy sweat that seemed to leach the energy right out of his nervous system. The line was dead. The silence that followed the devastating declaration, Arthur Vance is the owner of Sterling Financial, was heavier, more absolute than any sound. He stared across the pristine glass desk at the figure standing patiently by the door, the man he had just threatened with termination, starvation, and potential homelessness. The man he had refused a basic necessity. Arthur Vance, the old man, the smell of cheap coffee and institutional cleanser clinging faintly to his worn uniform, now looked less like a low-wage worker and more like a statue carved from judgment itself. All the polished aggression that fueled Derek's career, the ruthless calculus that had allowed him to shred the dignity of countless employees without a second thought, evaporated. What remained was a shivering, hollow core of self-preservation. The thermos. The word screamed in his mind, sharp and insistent. The highly encrypted satellite phone and retinal scanner. He could still save it. Maybe. The sheer weight of the lie he had been told, the elaborate, ridiculous costume, the smell of sweat, the pitiful, manufactured struggle, made the truth feel thin, unstable, almost hallucinatory. He needed to destroy the evidence. He needed to prove that the phone call was a prank, a corporate nightmare born of too much pressure. He needed that thermos. Derek took a deep, rattling breath, forcing his lips into the tight practice smile he usually reserved for demanding more productivity from people paid minimum wage. It looked grotesque on his pale, frightened face. Arthur, Derek began, his voice surprisingly shaky, like a faulty engine attempting to turn over. He took a hesitant step around the vast, white marble desk. Look, Arthur, I think we both need to take a step back here. I had a very stressful call. Bad news about a major shareholder meeting. It put me on edge. I apologize. Arthur Vance, the chairman of the board, currently dressed in a polyester uniform that hadn't seen a dryer sheet in weeks, simply nodded slowly. The look in his eyes was not anger, but a profound, chilling pity. Stress is tough, Mr. Sloan, Arthur said, his tone still perfectly modulated to the subservient deference Derek had grown accustomed to hearing. But policy is policy. I'm afraid you already told me to clock out. I need to clear my locker. Wait! Derek practically leaped forward, crossing the distance between them. His $4,000 Italian shoes squeaked softly on the imported flooring. Don't be rash. We can fix this. I owe you an apology, a real one. Why don't you have a seat? Let me get you something, not water, a coffee, a good one, from the executive machine. We'll forget everything that happened this morning. Clean slate." He edged closer to the thermos, which Arthur was still holding loosely at his side. It looked like any other battered chrome beverage holder, an insignificant detail that now held the totality of Derek's professional life and impending ruin. "You don't need to forget anything, Mr. Sloane," Arthur replied gently, shifting his weight. "You seem genuinely worried. What exactly are you trying to fix?" Arthur's question was a gentle, probing knife. It was a test, Derek realized, a final chance to admit culpability, to show a flicker of human remorse. But Derek's mind, trained only in combat and self-interest, registered only one imperative: take the thermos. "I'm trying to fix a misunderstanding, Arthur," Derek hissed, his facade of politeness cracking. His hand darted out, quick and desperate, aimed squarely at the thermos. "I want to personally put this in the trash. It's unsightly, doesn't match our corporate aesthetic." Arthur, despite his age and the supposed fragility of his persona, moved with surprising speed. He instinctively pulled the thermos back, holding it against his chest. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sloane," Arthur said, the tone hardening slightly, losing the thin veneer of employee compliance. "This thermos is company property. I need to log it back in downstairs." The refusal sent a bolt of white-hot panic through Derek. If Arthur left with that device, the recordings, the evidence of his cruelty, were guaranteed to be delivered straight to the board. The board that Derek had just learned was chaired by the man standing in front of him. Derek could see his life slipping away. The penthouse, the customized Porsche, the quarterly bonuses, the high-stakes game of corporate chess he loved. It was all tied up in that dented piece of metal. In a moment of pure, blinding fear and recklessness, Derek launched himself at Arthur. The refined, tailored manager, the epitome of Wall Street arrogance, became a feral animal. "Give me the damn thing!" Derek snarled, grabbing the older man's forearm, digging his fingers into the thin fabric of the uniform sleeve. Arthur stumbled back against the office wall, the sharp impact sending a tremor through the structure. The thermos clattered against the wall, but remained firmly in his grasp. "Mr. Sloane, release me immediately!" Arthur's voice was firm, now demanding, completely devoid of the deferential Arthur Vance persona. But Derek was far beyond reason. He was in survival mode. He saw the situation not as a chance for redemption, but as a hostile corporate takeover of his life. He pushed Arthur harder, pinning him against a mounted piece of corporate art, a sleek, stainless steel sculpture symbolizing endless growth. "You want to play games? You think this is funny?" Derek shouted, his voice cracking with hysteria. "You old fraud! You're going to cost me everything. I'll report you for assault, theft, corporate espionage." He tried to pry the thermos from Arthur's grasp, twisting the older man's arm roughly. Arthur winced slightly, maintaining his grip on the device that contained Derek's downfall. "I won't let you destroy company property, Mr. Sloane," Arthur replied, his breath coming in short bursts. The owner of Sterling Financial, worth billions, was being physically assaulted by a middle manager in a high-rise office overlooking Central Park. This physical confrontation was the final, irreversible mistake. It was no longer about a harsh word or a denied glass of water. It was violence against a superior officer, an attempted theft and destruction of evidence. Suddenly, Derek felt a powerful, stabilizing rage take over. He couldn't go down for being a jerk. He needed a crime, a tangible offense, to justify his actions and perhaps, just perhaps, twist the narrative. He stopped struggling for the thermos, his eyes darting quickly around the office. He saw the executive presentation table, laid out for a meeting later that morning. On it rested several sterling silver letter openers, engraved with the Sterling Financial logo, used as weighted paperweights. Derek shoved Arthur one last time, hard enough to momentarily disorient him, and spun toward the table. He snatched one of the heavy, razor-sharp letter openers. The cold metal felt surprisingly comforting in his hand. "You know what?" Derek gasped, breathing heavily, sweat plastering his expensive hair to his forehead. "You came into my office. You made threats. You attacked me. I have witnesses that you were clocked out. You are trespassing, and you are attempting to steal proprietary equipment." He pointed the silver weapon, which glinted under the harsh spotlights of the office, directly at Arthur Vance. "If I destroy this thermos right now, it's self-defense," Derek declared, his voice regaining some of its corporate steel, now mixed with true malice. "No one will believe an old, disgruntled security guard claiming to be the CEO who threatened me with a knife in my own office." Arthur Vance looked down at the letter opener pointed at him, then back up at Derek. The pity was gone, replaced by a cold, surgical assessment. "You intend to use violence against me, Mr. Sloan?" Arthur asked calmly, holding the thermos protectively. "And then frame me for it?" "I intend to save my life," Derek shrieked. "I'm calling the police right now. I'll tell them you snuck back in after I fired you, tried to steal my laptop, and threatened me when I caught you." He took a step back toward his desk, grabbing his personal cell phone. His mind raced, constructing the narrative of the heroic manager defending the integrity of Sterling Financial from a lunatic trespasser. It was a desperate Hail Mary attempt, but he had nothing left to lose. He had already fired the chairman of the board. Before Derek could dial 911, Arthur spoke, his voice carrying the authority that comes from commanding thousands of people and billions of dollars. An authority that transcended the cheap polyester uniform. "Don't bother, Mr. Sloan. They're already here." Derek froze. "What?" Arthur raised his hand, not to attack, but to gesture toward the door to the outer reception area. "When you refused to give me a single cup of water, I initiated Contingency Protocol Zeta," Arthur explained quietly. "This is a direct immediate security detail that activates only when the satellite phone identifies a clear, physical threat to the chairman of the board." The heavy, polished oak doors of Derek's office suite, the same doors he insisted be kept locked against the common staff, burst inward. 3 figures in expensive dark suits and earpieces stormed into the room. They weren't Sterling Financial internal security. These were professionals, their movements precise and efficient, their eyes scanning the room for threats. They moved instantly toward Derek. "Drop the weapon, Mr. Sloan," commanded the lead operative, a woman whose voice brooked zero argument. Derek, standing rigid, still holding the silver letter opener, felt the fear elevate to pure terror. His carefully constructed lie, his last-ditch effort at survival, had collapsed into a final, humiliating indictment. He looked wildly at Arthur Vance, the old security guard, who had been completely transformed by the arrival of his detail. Arthur was now simply the chairman. The disguise, the humility, the subservience. It had all fallen away. "You can drop it, Derek," Arthur said, nodding at the security team. "It's over." Derek's fingers went numb. The silver letter opener clattered to the floor with a metallic ring, sounding loud and final in the silent glass-walled office. The 3 security operatives advanced, forming a tight, inescapable circle around the defeated manager. Derek Sloan, the golden boy of Sterling Financial, had played his hand, and the card he drew was a felony charge and utter annihilation. He hadn't just failed the test, he had attempted to murder the examiner. The ultimate revelation was about to commence, not in private, but in front of witnesses who now understood exactly who the old security guard truly was. The air in the glass-walled office, usually maintained at a clinically perfect temperature by Derek's stringent climate controls, felt suddenly arctic. Derek Sloan, the golden boy of Sterling Financial, stood frozen, surrounded by three dark-suited, terrifyingly calm shadows. His world, built on aggressive ambition and the calculated destruction of lesser men, was disintegrating into a pile of ash and felony charges. He looked at Arthur Vance, the man he had ridiculed, dehumanized, and nearly framed for theft, now standing with the unshakable posture of a man who owned the entire city block. The cheap polyester security uniform that had looked so pathetic and ill-fitting just minutes ago now seemed like a grotesque mask, a deliberate joke played at Derek's expense. "Who are you?" Derek whispered, the question escaping on a ragged, terrified breath. It wasn't a question demanding a name, but an admission that he knew. Fundamentally, he was staring at something far above his pay grade, far above his entire existence. Arthur straightened his spine, a simple, almost imperceptible movement that somehow aged him backward 20 years. The stoop vanished. The tired lines around his eyes seemed to smooth out, replaced by an expression of cold, absolute disappointment. He glanced at the chief security operative, the woman who stood closest to Derek. "Agent Myers, please ensure Mr. Sloan remains calm," Arthur ordered, his voice no longer the shaky murmur of an elderly man fighting for minimum wage, but the clear, resonant baritone of a boardroom titan accustomed to immediate obedience. "And please retrieve the letter opener. We will need that for the police report." Police report. The words echoed in Derek's mind like a death knell. He hadn't just fired the chairman of Sterling Financial, he had threatened him with a deadly weapon. The consequences were no longer about a lost job or a bad reference. They were about locked doors and bars. "Arthur, please," Derek tried to plead, his tongue thick and dry. He scrambled internally, searching for a single scrap of leverage, some shared history, but there was none. He had treated Arthur Vance like lint on the corporate carpet. I apologize. I genuinely had no idea. This is a misunderstanding, sir. A huge misunderstanding based on the uniform." Arthur stepped around the expensive mahogany desk, moving with an authority Derek had only seen modeled by financial legends in magazines. Arthur didn't sit down in the plush leather chair. He leaned against the desk edge, looking down at Derek with the detached scrutiny one reserves for a particularly unpleasant experiment gone wrong. "The uniform was the point, Derek," Arthur said quietly. "The uniform was the test. I came here dressed as the absolute bottom rung of the ladder, the man you and managers like you view as expendable, obsolete, and a burden to the bottom line." He paused, letting the silence draw taut. "I didn't need to see your spreadsheets, Derek. I didn't need to read the quarterly reports full of creatively laundered figures. I needed to know if the man I placed in charge of thousands of employees, the man who controlled the emotional well-being of the staff, had a soul, or if he was simply a sophisticated automaton programmed for cruelty." Arthur gestured toward the door, where the three agents stood like silent sentinels. "Contingency Protocol Zeta is the code we use when an undercover operation is compromised by physical danger. I designed this entire program myself a decade ago, specifically to flush out cancer like you from the system. And you delivered a spectacular case study." Derek swayed slightly. "But the age policy," he stammered, his mind desperately trying to revert to the only logic he understood, corporate jargon. "The reports showed aging staff were costing us too much in benefits. You said yourself, efficiency." "Efficiency?" Arthur scoffed, the sound devoid of humor. "You weaponized my own words, twisted them until they became justification for inhumanity. You didn't fire Mr. Henderson because he was inefficient. You fired him because he reminded you that time marches on, and you despise anything that threatens your perceived eternal youth and power." Arthur looked down at the expensive Italian shoes Derek wore, then back up to his terrified face. The final, unforgivable offense wasn't the ageism, Derek. It wasn't even the refusal of water to an ostensibly dehydrated elderly employee. It was the attempt to frame me. You didn't just fire me. You fabricated a crime, corporate theft, to deny me a simple severance and blackball me from the industry. Agent Myers stepped forward, retrieving a small, slick device from an inner pocket. It wasn't a phone. It looked like a high-end recording unit. "Sir," Myers reported formally, her eyes fixed on Arthur, "we have full audio and visual evidence of Mr. Sloan threatening physical violence, the attempt to frame the subject for theft, and the confession of age-based discrimination." The confirmation hit Derek like a physical blow. The office, which he had considered his sanctuary and his kingdom, had been bugged, monitored, and recorded. Arthur hadn't been an intruder. He had been conducting a formal, highly sophisticated internal investigation, and Derek had walked straight into the trap, believing his own hubris would protect him. "You knew I was trying to fire you, didn't you?" Derek whispered, the reality finally sinking its teeth in. Arthur nodded slowly. "Of course, that was the intended outcome. I needed to see how low you would sink when faced with an obstacle you believed you could crush without consequence. You exceeded my worst expectations." He reached into the chest pocket of the security uniform, the ridiculous, cheap pocket, and pulled out a thick, leather-bound wallet that was completely out of place with the uniform. He flipped it open, revealing a platinum identification card and the unmistakable official seal of Sterling Financial. "My name is Arthur Vance, and I am the chairman, majority shareholder, and CEO of this corporation," he stated, enunciating every syllable. "And effective immediately, Derek Sloan, your employment with Sterling Financial is terminated. Not simply fired, Derek. Terminated for gross misconduct, violation of federal anti-discrimination laws, and attempted felony assault against a corporate officer." Arthur didn't need to bark or rage. His calm certainty was 1,000 times more devastating than Derek's screaming ever could be. "Agent Myers, please contact the New York Police Department. Advise them we have an employee detained who threatened the chairman with a weapon and attempted to file a false police report," Arthur instructed. "Ensure that Mr. Sloan is escorted from the premises. He is not permitted to collect his personal items. Everything in this office is now evidence in the pending corporate lawsuit." Derek's meticulously curated life flashed before his eyes. The penthouse condo, the leased Ferrari, the exclusive country club membership. Everything was funded by Sterling Financial, and everything was about to be snatched away. "You can't do this!" Derek screamed, the sophisticated facade finally cracking, revealing the panicked, insecure boy underneath. "You can't ruin my life over a letter opener and a misunderstanding about a coffee machine. I brought sterling record profits this quarter." "You brought profits while draining the soul of this company," Arthur retorted, his voice rising slightly in genuine anger. "Profits are fleeting, Derek. Loyalty, trust, and the reputation of treating people humanely are the only truly sustainable assets. You destroyed both." Arthur stood up straight and looked out the massive window at the sprawling, expensive panorama of Manhattan that had once been Derek's view of his conquered domain. "I founded this company on the principle that the person emptying the trash deserves the same respect as the person signing the checks," Arthur stated, turning back to the broken man before him. "You failed to honor that sacred principle. In fact, you spat on it." He nodded to the security team. "Escort him out. Do not allow him to speak to anyone on the way down. I want every employee to see the cost of cruelty, but I don't want them to hear his excuses." Agent Myers and the two other operatives moved decisively, gripping Derek's arms. The touch of their expensive wool suits felt like handcuffs. As they dragged him toward the now battered oak doors, Derek made one last, desperate attempt to regain control. "Wait! My severance! My contract guarantees a gold parachute," he wailed, struggling against the iron grip of the agents. Arthur didn't even turn his head. "Severance? You are facing criminal charges, Derek. We will be pursuing the maximum penalty, including the recovery of all bonuses paid to you over the last 5 years, citing fiduciary failure and creating a hostile work environment. You won't be collecting a parachute, Derek. You'll be collecting a debt." The agents hauled Derek through the doors. His desperate shouts of protest faded as they moved into the outer reception area. Arthur finally sat down in the luxurious office chair, leaning back heavily. He closed his eyes for a long moment, the exhaustion of maintaining the facade hitting him instantly. The physical strain of acting weak and old was immense. He opened his eyes and picked up the discarded security jacket, the old threadbare garment that had caused Derek such disgust. He placed it carefully on the pristine mahogany desk. It was the physical proof of the test. He looked up as Agent Myers returned, closing the door softly behind her. "The police are en route, sir. They have been briefed on the assault and the attempted framing. Internal security is sealing his office and seizing all records," she confirmed professionally. "What are your instructions regarding the employee Vance, the man Derek fired?" Arthur smiled, the first genuine warm smile since he had put on the terrible uniform. "The employee Vance is me, Agent Myers," Arthur corrected softly. "I want the real, elderly security guard, Mr. Henderson, contacted immediately. Offer him his job back, effective immediately, with a full year of back pay and double the annual salary. Arrange for him to have a full paid health sabbatical. Tell him that the chairman believes that true loyalty is priceless." Arthur stood up, shedding the last remnants of the persona. "And have my driver bring the usual vehicle around. I need to address the entire corporate headquarters. I want every single employee, from the highest executive down to the janitorial staff, to know why Derek Sloan was fired. This is not just a correction, Myers. This is a cultural reset." He walked over to the immense window, looking out over his domain, no longer seeing spreadsheets and targets, but people. The old man in the uniform had taught the chairman a fundamental truth. A company's strength is not measured by its highest point of profit, but by its lowest point of humanity. And Arthur Vance was determined to fix his own mistake, one cruel manager at a time. The test was over, and justice, massive and total, was finally being served.